This week's podcast is sponsored by Sevenoaks Sound and Vision, who currently have a fantastic sale on that's packed with deals. Save on top brands on a range of products, plus receive a free pair of Focal Spark wireless headphones with selected hi-fi and home cinema purchases over £300. Visit ssav.com for more details. Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 10th of December, and joining me on this edition is Steve Withers.
You smell good.
Ed Selley.
I do very competitive ice dancing.
And Mark Botwright.
Booyah.
Great enthusiasm there, Mark.
He's had the fight taken out of him by
what's
the
feeling.
Yeah. I think it's it must be the Christmas thing. Is it, Mark? Is that what's wrong? Are you a bit of a bah humbug when it comes to Christmas?
I love Christmas. Yeah. So no, it's not that. Not that in the slightest.
It's working at Christmas I'm not so keen on.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, if you start Christmas in mid-November or earlier, as appears to be, to avoid the need to actually work for bits of it. So that's not.
I'm fairly sure 1 year we'll see like Easter eggs out before Christmas.
You joke, but cream eggs are out in the shops at the minute.
Cream eggs are good available though.
No, they have 6 months on, 6 months off.
Yeah, so they've turned up early, and I bet Elton John must be taking a hell of a bag of coke if he's going to get round everybody in the UK this year, isn't he?
Well, it'll be hard to say, won't it? But I'm looking forward to starting to instill the idea of the Legion of Santa Claus with my son this Christmas, because I think he's old enough to start. I'm going to forestall the not believing in Santa by simply telling him that it's not one man who delivers presents to all children in the world in one night. It's actually a secret society of fanatics. So the ones that you
I
see,
thought you had all the little elves, didn't they? Don't they help?
No. The ones you see in shopping centres and stuff, they're low-level initiates, and they're trying to make their way up the chain.
So like some sort of Masonic.
Yeah, and essentially, come 24th of December, an army of red-suited fanatics from around the world start throwing presents around. And you could even work in stuff like Krampus is one of the senior members exiled for going against
he's
society.
like the fallen angel or something.
So the whole thing is essentially perfect. And provided I keep reading the conspiracy theory Reddits to cover off all the holes, I think I can keep him going into his 30s, only at the cost of his mental health and well-being.
You can work in the Masons and the Illuminati. It could work. keep it going.
But is there one central figure though? Is it like a kind of pyramid scheme?
Santa Prime. But the other thing is, I think if I work on it long enough, I can actually pitch it as a film script, and it's all going to work.
Okay.
So that's all good. I think I
actually watched that film. I think you should pitch
I know.
it.
Exactly. I've also been enjoying a cracking Christmas record for this season, which is My First Divorced Christmas by the Scone Cash Players.
You're not actually divorced yet, are you? You're separated.
No, I'm separated. So
Steve always the pedant, eh?
Yeah.
Well, these kind of little facts are what can trip you up, Ed, over the next few months or years. So details are important. Where were you? What you were doing? What you've written down? What you said? As Trump's about to find out, details are important. Remember the lies you've told.
Christ, we're all over the place this morning, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, Steve, after last week's episode, no sponsors yet for bedtime wear. No sponsors. Nobody's knitted a hat or anything. So,
I
discovered that most AVForums listeners can't knit. That's fair enough.
Yes. In terms of the Venn diagram overlap, that is going to be limited. Yeah. And in the same way that I've been asking Sapporo to sponsor us for the last 5 years, and they still haven't got their fingers out.
Begging, Ed.
I think I've been keeping it on the side of pointing out the commercial viability of it.
Well, you fuss about a beer sponsor. I mean, does it have to be Sapporo or anyone?
I'd open the gates a bit wider. Obviously Sapporo is the king of all lagers. You start with the best, but there are other people I'd be prepared to see. The Beer 52 thing was good, but I'd rather just receive a crate of something fizzy and blonde.
Certainly, a beer sponsor couldn't be accused of being biased in any way because we don't have anything to do with alcohol.
I'm teetotal.
And also,
In your case, exactly.
let's be clear about this. The single most cost-effective upgrade to either your AV or stereo system is to get pissed in front of it.
Or smoke something.
Yeah, so ultimately, if someone wants to get in on the ground level with a cost-effective universal upgrade program, beer manufacturers, get on board. Come on. So there, yeah, that's our pitch. I suppose we ought to talk about AV, shouldn't we?
Mark, how's the hats coming along? I'm intrigued.
Yeah, quite you make a hat, Mark.
Well, what kind of hat do you want?
Something light and warm that I can wear in bed at night.
I don't think any of that. Looking at Mr. Botwright's work, that there all seems to be a bit too much brim for a hat you can sleep in.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd have to hang over the edge of the bed.
But I'll take a Panama
It'd be warm.
if you're offering.
Well, I mean, surely Panama isn't. I mean, that's a totally different set of millinery skills. You're weaving rather than actually making a hat. But I may be wrong on this. I mean, you're supposed to be able to roll a Panama hat into a tube, aren't you? And you can flick them, and they go pop, and they go out.
Let's see what the Mad Hatter's got to say about it, Mark.
Well, you have got the kind of, the crushable Panamas, and there are some which you wouldn't want to crush. But an interesting fact. Oh God.
We'll be a judge of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I shouldn't have prefaced that with
you built it up a
interesting.
little bit there.
Yeah, exactly. But we wear the black bands around the Panama after, I think it was when Prince Albert died. And so since then, we've always had the black bands around it. But traditional Panama, you don't have those.
What is the period of mourning for a dead royal? I'm surely.
Well, it would appear to be well over 150 years. So
enough.
Not according to Victoria.
I could have just made that up. Let's be honest.
You could have.
I'm not 100% on it. Don't take that onto Pointless or anything.
It's fair. Yeah, can't argue with that.
Yeah.
So it's Christmas party. Christmas party season. Has anybody been? Anybody?
I'm off to a Christmas party tonight.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. And then I might be attending another one, but it's a long way to go. So they better have decent food. So we'll see. Look, I'm a very simple soul. I'm motivated primarily by
food and drink.
Food and drink.
Free food, drink.
And records. Records also motivate me, but that's in a different way. So that's fine. Although I don't need to eat right now. I don't have anyone saw Twitter. I have an inability to judge the quantities of rice, pasta, or lentils. In terms of how much.
You've got to find some kind of a receptacle that you can measure it in. Otherwise, you're screwed.
Well, in related news, I've made Danzak for 12. So there's quite a lot. I'll probably have some more Danzak for lunch to set me up for the Christmas party, if I'm honest. So yeah, I'm not in any immediate. I don't have any immediate need to eat, as I'm feeling a little full right now. But it was actually satisfying to eat something I had crafted myself in front of MasterChef last night, as opposed to consuming a hastily defrosted fish pie out of a Tupperware, which I did earlier in the week. So although I had made,
I think your soups always look nice.
Oh, thank you.
Do you use a soup maker?
No.
Oh. He is the soup maker.
I was thinking about getting one.
Mark, don't, because I did. I got one last year, and
you loved it.
The first couple of times it was great, but then I went to make. I can't remember which soup it was. I tried to make, and it all stuck to the bottom.
Well, which one did you get? Did you get one that was self-cleaning?
It had the self-cleaning feature and all the rest of it. But as soon as you put anything chunky in there, it all went to the bottom, and it all just congealed in the bottom. It was. I had to throw it away in the end.
So now you just use a saucepan like everybody else.
Yeah, I use a pan and a blender like everybody else.
Yeah, hand blender is exactly it's just the king of the accessory to end all accessories when it comes to soup making. Because also you can choose the point at which you blend, and then you can add things afterwards. Yeah, so you can do a tomato blended down, then add beans, and it's all.
Yeah,
but it's like the fact they say that you can make one in about 20 minutes. That's
I can make one in about 20 minutes using a pan.
Yeah.
Even with my Gash electric hobs, I'm still bitter about those. Just in case anyone hadn't noticed.
I've been using them for years. I'm used to it now. When I go to someone like my mum's place, where she's got gas, and I end up burning everything because I'm not used to being so quick.
You see, I burn things with electric hobs because they start to build up residual heat level. And then suddenly you realise that actually the entire hob is about to melt.
Yeah,
I'll turn it down, and 25 minutes later, the temperature actually starts to drop.
Yeah, it goes no heat, no heat, no heat, bloody hell.
All the heat.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Steve, you'll be going to some middle class right wing parties, are you? Waitrose food and stuff.
Not really. I will be having next Thursday, the week this podcast goes up. I'll be having Christmas lunch with a PR guy that happens to live very close to me, Neil Truckle. That's about it, really. Unless we crack open some beers next Friday, that can be my second Christmas party of the.
Yeah, we could get some party poppers and
stuff. I'm at a Christmas party tomorrow, Saturday night. I've got to go to, unfortunately. I have to go to Bristol, and I hate going into Bristol. Always get lost.
Okay, there you go.
But yeah, I'll probably have I'll book a couple of Christmas lunches a bit nearer Christmas, just at some of the local pubs and restaurants. Because I like a set Christmas lunch. It's usually quite good value. Go trad, bit of salmon at the beginning, turkey, Christmas pudding.
Well, I'm down at my parents', so once again we'll be barbecuing the turkey on Christmas Day, provided that there's not an actual monsoon going. So
yeah, I am looking forward to it. Which is I can't make any of the Christmas party. I've been invited to, but I just can't make Christmas parties. So Christmas is going to be Christmas. That's my Christmas party, and it's my mum's cooking as well, which I'm looking forward to. That'll do for me. Don't need to go to these right wing parties.
What's right wing? To be fair,
it's a Christmas party.
To be fair as well, the hi-fi industry, considering it is predominantly based around selling items that are absurdly expensive, it's absolutely jam-packed full of people who, after 4 glasses of wine, are borderline Marxists. There's a
working class heroes who've never done any work in their lives.
There's a dichotomy of people who flog things that only the absurdly wealthy can buy, bemoaning the evils of capitalism. Yeah. And I'm not going to name. I'm not going to name
I
names.
can think of one person straight away.
Exactly. But there's more than that, and it's like that. It's like you're not a horny-handed son of toil. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. If products you make cost over 10 grand a box, this is not. This is not
like digging coal here, is it? Yeah. We're doing a pretty easy job.
We probably need to stop talking now before we incriminate ourselves. And
you'll notice I'm saying absolutely nothing at this point. This is entirely down to you and Steve. So there you go. Mark, current competitions.
Okie dokes. We can win a copy of Dog Days on Blu-ray, and that competition closes on the 11th of December. And we've got a couple of competitions that will close on 14th of December. We've got Yanks on Blu-ray and the Equaliser 2 on Blu-ray. And we've still got the Dream Screen Holiday giveaway, and that one closes on the 16th of December. And a couple of competitions closing on the 17th. A day later, you can win Fear the Walking Dead Season 4 on Blu-ray and Khartoum on Blu-ray. And we've also got a BenQ W1700 4K DLP projector, and you've got until 14th of January to win that one. Some
really good prizes in there. And who can enter these competitions, Mark?
Funnily enough that you should ask, all competitions are open to eligible AVForums members resident in the UK.
Okay, and any previous competition winners?
Yep, Quexit won The Tree of Life on Blu-ray. John Dickinson won Skyscraper on Blu-ray, and Sleepy One won Lucky on Blu-ray.
Okie dokie. Well done to all our winners. We'll be back with hardware news in a sec. Okay, so hardware news, and let's get straight into it. So I've had 2 TVs recently in the room, 65 inchers as well, not the normal 55-inch TV. So we discussed briefly my initial thoughts on the Sony ZF9. I've now had time to fully review that. The review will obviously be up by the time you're listening to this podcast. It's about to go up today. I'm just waiting on an email from the Sony engineers just to confirm a couple of points. They will not, as Sony policy, tell you what kind of panel it is or how many dimming zones there are.
Thanks a lot, Sony.
I've been told that a couple of times now, and I had it confirmed yesterday in an email which said, oh, by the way, it is Sony policy not to discuss this point, which was the main point of the email, really. The other was one of the things that I discovered with this set, and which basically annoyed me. And some users it might not see it. Well, I'm going to say might not see it. You will see it. You'll see it with HDR material. You'll see it with some SDR material, and that's the fact that the black bars on CinemaScope films light up with blooming. If anything bright goes near any of the black bars, the black bars light up. And films like Gravity, which is an SDR film, and but white suits against black backgrounds, and as soon as a white suit gets anywhere, or light gets anywhere near the black bars, it lights up. And I just found that incredibly distracting.
I don't understand why that is, because it's got at least 100 dimming zones. Surely
104 that I counted. So
yeah, right. So 104 dimming zones. Why can't you just turn off the zones around behind the black bars?
I don't know. Well, you see the horizontal columns. There's only 8 of them, and there's 13 vertical columns, which is 104 zones. So maybe that causes issues, but it's not a problem that's just on this Sony. If you look at any LED LCD TV with a fouled backlight, you get it now and again. Even the Samsung that I have here, the Q900, certain scenes where it'll happen on that, but it's like one scene within the whole film, because it's so bright on screen that it's bled into the black bars, and it's just it's a fallback of technology. With the ZF9, it's all the bloody time. Every time there's something bright on screen, it lights up the black bars. Now, it could have been a fantastic TV. This is what's so annoying, because the colour performance is superb. But the other issue that's happened is it's a VA panel that's being used. We thought it was IPS. I thought it was IPS, and we discussed it, and everything was pointed to be IPS. It's actually a VA panel with a filter on top. That spreads.
It's a VA panel that, thanks to the filter, acts like an IPS panel. Acts like an viewing angle at black levels.
Exactly, and contrast's gone as well. So
it makes you wonder why they didn't just use an IPS panel.
Yeah,
that was their end game.
We see. I don't know where the wide viewing angle things come in, because the ZD9. I mean, I didn't live with that TV, and I didn't review it, but I did see it a number of times, and I did spend some time with it. And I remember the viewing angles not being great, but I remember it being a fantastic TV, especially with HDR. Yeah. And it's just a case of, well, where's this wide viewing angle come in? Who at Sony has had this bright idea that they need to have better viewing angles? Who signed off the filter? And it appears that they've gone to solve one problem and just created another by doing that. The other thing that sticks with me, and I'm really surprised, is that anybody signed this off in QC. Where's the quality control on this? I mean, you can't tell me that they're not seeing this issue with the TV. And it's not a faulty TV, because I thought it might have been faulty to start with, but then I had a quick look around just to see who else had seen one, and everybody was reporting the same thing. And
I've seen it on them as well.
Yeah, and that's worldwide. So it's not a faulty TV either. So it's just kind of baffling, because otherwise, you know what the colour's like on these Sony TVs? Absolutely brilliant. Really good. I mean, only Panasonic beat them when it comes to the accuracy of the colours. But Sony have a professional division. They have been designing these TVs for professional use. They've been designing displays for professional use. They understand the standards. They understand what's required of the TV. And if you're going to do a TV that's a Master Series TV, it has to hit things. It has to hit parameters. It has to.
If you're going to call it that, you better deliver the goods.
And the other thing is, disappointingly, out of the box, it wasn't very accurate at all. Out of the box, it wasn't terrible, unless you had a reference point next to it, unless you were really, had an eye for an accurate image, or you had a reference point sitting next to it. I don't think the vast majority of users would actually realise it was inaccurate, because the LEDs were only about 8 or 9 at the most, and that was in the brighter reaches of the image, and the error was cyan. So it's not a colour that's immediately obvious to the eye, So, the vast majority of viewers wouldn't really notice how inaccurate it is. It's just when you measure it, you realise it could have been performing a bit better. Thing is, though, as soon as you correct that grayscale, and it only needs a 2-point correction, in fact, it only needed a 1-point correction, if I'm being completely honest, it absolutely is bang on accurate for colour and for grayscale, and tracking of the gamma is absolutely spot on as well. So it's just a bit of a shame that it's a real mixed bag, absolutely, because when you give it an HDR image where and you ignore the black bars, or it's a full screen HDR image like Dynasties, BBC Dynasties, when you feed it something like that, my God, it's good. It is really, really good, or it can be really, really good with the accurate colours, with the the highlights. I mean, it can reach 1250 nits in the peak highlights, and you can see that, and it looks fantastic. But it's just these, for me anyway, as a film fan, as somebody who enjoys watching films, and on a 65 or higher screen, because I don't know what it's going to look like on the 75-inch, but certainly on the 65-inch, watching scope films, it just distracted the hell out of me, and I was getting more and more annoyed and starting to shout at the TV because it was like, it could have been so much better. It's a real missed opportunity. So I'm hoping that Sony take that feedback as it's intended. It scores it's a 7 out of 10 for me because of that issue. I mean, if it didn't have that issue, it would have been a 9 or 9.5 or whatever. It would have scored a lot higher because everything else is really quite good. The only other thing is intra-scene contrast, but again, it's that filter that's causing that. So it doesn't quite have the pop in mid-tone scenes. So a good example is if you've seen the film Pan. I know I keep mentioning Pan, but it really is a fantastic. It's got everything in it, HDR wise.
It's not a very good film, but
it's a absolutely terrible film. But as a test disc, it's phenomenal. And there's a scene in there where they're in a lagoon, they're floating on a barge, and it's a really difficult scene for displays. It's a great scene to test because if the screen you're testing has great dynamic range and contrast, it's fantastic because it's got so you've got flaming torches which look great with HDR details, but it's also lots of shadow and lots of blacks and so on, and it just looked milky with that scene. It was like a milky green throughout the scene, which is a bit of a shame. But then on the flip of the coin, I put it next to the Samsung Q900 55-inch, had them sitting next to each other. The scene from Gravity, you know the one I mean, where Sandra Bullock's spinning around in a spacesuit against the Milky Way in the background. In that scene, the local dimming was fantastic. Really, really good. Lots of detail. And in fact, I was getting more detail in that scene on the Sony than I was when I had it with the C8 next to the OLED, because obviously the OLED is so deep it starts to crush a little bit in the star fields, whereas you were getting absolutely everything, and it was fantastic. And next to the Samsung vignettes, it almost pulses the local dimming in that scene. It's just one of those really tricky scenes to get right for an LED LCD, yet the Sony nailed it. So you can see that it does some things absolutely fantastic, and then other things are so distracting that I couldn't live with it, basically. And hopefully they'll take the feedback on, they'll have a look at it, and maybe they can come up with a solution. And if they're going to do another LED LCD, because see, the other thing I'm thinking, Steve, here is it looks like they're positioning the AF9 as the product, as the Halo product, and I don't think they know what to do with the ZF9. They've had to do an LED LCD TV. Now, I'm not saying that they've deliberately crippled it, but perhaps they're not putting the effort in that they did with the ZD9.
Yeah, because if you compare it to I think the biggest disappointment about this TV is that it's coming off the back of the ZD9, which was a very strong LED LCD television. Yeah. So it's disappointing, not just because its performance isn't as good as it could be, but because it's replacing a TV that was really good. And I just get the feeling, and I think this also applies to LG, that their heart just isn't in LCD anymore. That they consider OLED to be it's rapidly becoming a mass market product. Production's getting cheaper, yields are getting better, prices are tumbling, and I would expect to see I would expect to see OLED being positioned as a mass market product next year. And by that I mean we're going to see sub 1,000 quid models. We're going to see them really slashing prices, because I can't really see what they can do performance-wise to OLED now. It's peaked. It does everything it can do. It can't go any brighter. All they can do now is reduce the price. Yeah. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see that become the mass market product, and hopefully we'll see something else be positioned as a high-end technology. Yeah. So, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of that is what Danny Tak said last week in the interview as well, and he even mentioned a 49-inch OLED. So if they bring in a 49-inch OLED, if they can do that,
if they do Dolby Vision and HDR10 on the same set, I think that some of the main objectors out there for some people buying into the technology have gone then. And it, like you say, if the prices tumble and they get the yields that they're looking for, and there's more production lines coming on by the month, by the looks of it. So it looks like it's going to be that will become the mass market technology, no doubt about it. The budget end will be LED LCD. Mid-market,
really budget end, like,
and then mid-market up, mid-market upwise is going to be OLED, absolutely. Yeah. But anyway, so that was the ZF9. Like I say, the review's up on the site. Go and have a read of it. And if you want a lot more in-depth information than what I've covered here, I've just basically covered the highlights or lowlights, depends on how you look at it, because it was a mixed bag really. And then I've also had the Samsung Q900 in, which is the first Samsung 8K TV, and it's a 65-inch that I've got here because basically I couldn't fit anything else into my room. So obviously, Steve, you've seen the 85-inch. You went along because obviously they're not going to send that out for review.
No.
And the reason it hasn't appeared on that hasn't appeared on AVForums is that we have a policy at AVForums where for displays, we don't tend to go off site. If we can get one in for review in our facilities in conditions that we can control and so on, we'd rather do that. And we also don't look at pre-productions either, so it has to be a retail sample. So if that's why people are wondering why Steve's 85-inch thing hasn't appeared on AVForums, just because we don't cover that kind of thing when it comes to displays. So anyway, you've seen that. I've got the 65-inch here. I've spent a week with it so far, and I think because it's a 65-inch, I was struggling from my viewing distance to really see any major difference when it came to resolution, Steve, because we don't have any native 8K.
Yeah, I was going to say, without any 8K content, it's just upscaled, isn't it?
There's nothing there, so it's upscaled. And again, it's a 65-inch screen, so it's not a massive screen. I think if it was a 75 or 85, and I believe you're going to have a look at the 75-inch early next year as well, Steve, because I basically can't fit that into my place. So it might be different the more you move up, and if we eventually get some native 8K material. The annoying thing is that it has YouTube HDR player on board, but it's only 4K resolution, maximum resolution.
You mean you haven't tuned into this Japanese TV channel that's just launched?
Yeah,
No.
they broadcast 2001 in 8K.
Yeah. And they're
love to
hoping
have
to
seen
show.
that.
I think is it My Fair Lady or something? They said they're
Yeah,
hoping
My Fair Lady
to
was
show by
also
next
shot
spring.
65mm next spring.
Yeah, so unfortunately, no, we can't get that. And the thing is that on my Mac, I can go to YouTube and I can watch 8K. Well, when I say watch, it'll play for a couple of seconds and then wait and buffer for a while and then play another bit. So it is capable. It's just a shame that on the TV, the YouTube player isn't 8K. It's only 4K. But having said that, there is 2 or 3, maybe 4 videos on YouTube that are 8K, and when you watch them on the Q900, even though the player is only 4K, you can notice a difference. And it's like that effect that you have where a film, if it's mastered in 4K and then transferred to Blu-ray, there's something about it where it just looks that little bit
Yeah, because you're starting
sharper.
with that high resolution source.
Yeah.
It just has that little extra
does.
something about the image.
It does, and you can notice that. So there is a couple of 8K clips there. I'm trying to remember what I think it's Picture Box or something like that. It'll be in the review anyway, where you can go and watch these videos that I've been watching on YouTube on it. And with those videos, I really could notice, the resolution jump there next to the Q9 that was sitting next to it. So I've got a Q9 FN 55-inch sitting next to the 65-inch Q900. The local dimming algorithm has changed on the Q900 compared to the Q9. So that scene in Gravity that we discussed earlier on the Sony, again, it looks really, really good. It doesn't do any pulsing, it doesn't do any vignetting. It's almost really, really steady. It's not quite as good as the Sony was with it, but the Q900 definitely, and I've got a Q9 FN sitting next to it with the latest firmware on there, and it's a lot better than it used to be on the Q9, but it's still, now and again, it gets cut out a little bit and it will start to dim and then suddenly brighten up again. Whereas the Q9, solid with that scene, absolutely solid there. Now, I did notice a couple of bits and pieces with the local dimming. I reported it back to Samsung. They already knew about it. I'm waiting on the firmware, which is why you're not getting my full review at the minute. I'm waiting on firmware turning up, which they say will solve the problem. And if it does solve the problem and they confirm that's going to go out over the air, then we'll accept that into the review. And it's always good when manufacturers react to feedback like that, when you get in touch with them and say, by the way, should it be doing this, blah blah blah. Samsung were on the ball straight away and said, actually, give us a day or so and we'll send you the firmware. So from that point of view, absolutely bang on. Do you need an 8K TV? No, you don't need an 8K TV at the minute. I don't think it does anything over the Q9 FN. In fact, I'm going to be controversial. It's the same TV, but it's got an 8K panel in it. It has got the updated engine. It has got the...
it's got different processing.
Different processing in there. So to look at them initially, you would think, well, it's just the same TV, but it's got an 8K panel in it. that's how it initially looks. There are differences in there. It does a lot of machine learning and this UI stuff. It would take most of the podcast to go in it and explain what it does, but basically what it does is it analyses everything. It sends it back into Samsung. They have a supercomputer at their end. They work it out what's going to make that image look better, and then it gets sent out to the TV in terms of firmware to improve the performance of the TV. That is in really basic terms, because it's a lot more complicated than that, but that basically is what happens. And it uses this machine learning, and it uses the advanced processing and all the rest of it to improve the upscaling performance, because Samsung realised that there's no need for an 8K TV at the minute, and everything that you're going to look at and view on it is probably going to be 4K or under. SD is unwatchable on this TV, so I'll get that out of the way straight away. But if you're buying an 8K TV, don't go and watch SD channels. Of course it's going to look, and no amount of upscaling or processing technology is ever going to make that look good.
If you just did the maths, the number of pixels on an SD image and the number of pixels on an 8K image, and work out how much of that image the TV is basically just guessing. It's almost all of it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots still to test. Like I say, I've had it for a week. I'm going to have it for a little bit longer, probably into the beginning of next week before I have to send it back. I'm enjoying my time with it. It's a really good TV. It's a solid TV. It is different to OLED. There's no doubt about that. So I don't think it's really fair to compare the two, because they are different technologies, but the local dimming is superb. It has the same amount of dimming zones as the Q900, which is just under 500 zones. What else is there that I really need to talk about? I think the main thing is the upscaling. It hasn't put a foot wrong. And apart from SD, which looks terrible on anything anyway, as soon as you feed it a 4K signal and it upscales that 4K signal, it's doing a fantastic job of that. Even Blu-ray looks really, really good. I really couldn't have complained. HDR, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you're getting peak highlighted over 2000 nits. It is phenomenal HDR performance on it. And once the little niggles that I have found with it get sorted with this firmware, which I'm confident it will happen, and if it doesn't, it'll be in the review, but obviously you can look at the review for the finer details. It really is a stonking TV. If you live in a living room where you're gonna, the whole family are gonna use this TV, it's not just for movie viewing, and it does movie viewing really well. No lighting up the black bars or anything like that. It looks really nice, really solid. It's really quite accurate as well. In terms of its out of the box movie mode is really quite good. Motion's pretty good if you switch everything off. It's up to you whether you use frame interpolation, that kind of thing. But again, I haven't found anything that I thought, well, I couldn't actually live with this TV, because it is really
low input
really
lag
good TV.
if you're a gamer, so that's always handy.
I haven't got round to input lag testing just yet.
I think you'll find it's very low.
I'm expecting it to be around about 20 milliseconds, to be honest
maybe
with you.
Sub that.
Yeah.
So that, then obviously you've got the UI, all the streaming services.
Yeah, you know what,
smart
Steve?
Platform.
The only thing I've used so far is YouTube. I haven't even looked at Netflix or anything like that.
Well,
That's
but it's the same UI as the Q9, so you know it's going to be solid. It's a good UI.
Yeah, no, it's very good. That and LG's. I mean, they're almost the same. They're very, very similar, and very, very solid, very reliable, very quick.
Yeah, fast, responsive, doesn't crash, robust.
So I've got to say, I at this moment, initial thoughts, I am impressed with what I'm seeing, and if we can get the little niggle that I have, and it is just a little niggle, if the firmware fixes that out, which it should do, then yeah, I think it really is. For the money as well, when you're thinking it's an 8K TV, do we need it at the minute? No, not really. But we're AVForums, we're AVForums fans, we're AVForums members. We want to be at the cutting edge. If you want to be at the cutting edge, you can be. And the interesting
not crazy prices, is it? It's $4,999.
Yeah, $5,000.
It's not. That's not outrageous for a
outrageous,
no. telly.
for 65 inch, no. And like I say, I mean, it's a real workhorse of a TV. It will do and handle most environments, most uses that you would have for it, whether it be movie viewing, whether it be gaming hours on end and that kind of thing. It seems to be a real workhorse TV. It's not like an OLED where I would really only say have an OLED. If you're a movie viewer, if you're going to do normal TV and gaming and all the rest of it in a normal living room, and the whole family and is using the set, and you kind of really control the use, LED LCD TV is what you need for that. That set of circumstances, I think, more than an OLED. Whereas if you're a movie fan and you want the absolute best, but even still, you're not going to get 2000 nits of brightness out of an OLED. But still, you get the dynamic range because you get the per pixel blacks next to the whites and the dynamic range of that and the contrast and all the rest of it. So there's a technology for everybody and so on. The interesting thing is the One Connect box. I love the way that that's designed. I love that interface. I think it's a great idea because the thing that Samsung say they're going to do now, they haven't confirmed whether they're going to charge for it or whether it's going to be free.
No, they have actually.
Have they?
It's free. If you upon request, they will replace the box for free with one that will have an HDMI 2.1 input.
Right. Okay. So I wasn't sure. That was something I needed to clarify with them. But if they've already clarified it with you, that's great. So if you buy this TV now and then HDMI 2.1 comes along, because you're going to need that for 8K content, whether it be, it's not going to be optical based. I don't think we'll see 8K on disc at all. So, but if you need to use the HDMI input for 8K, then you need HDMI 2.1. They will update the One Connect box, and if you request it, you buy one now, you request it.
Upon request. They won't do it automatically, but if you ask them to, they will.
Yeah. Which, again, that's another great thing. And I don't know if you ever saw the back of the TV that you looked at, Steve, the 85-inch. The feet that it stands on, so you've got two locations, so you can have them in the middle. Thank God for that. Because if you've got a small stand, or you can have them out to the side. But when you get the TV out the box, the feet are actually clipped into the back of the panel. Yeah,
so if you wall mount them, you don't lose your feet.
So you don't lose the feet. Which is, I thought that was an ingenious idea. I thought, fantastic. Really good idea, that. And of course, there's only the one cable going to the TV as well for
which
One
is
Connect.
Really nice too, particularly if you're wall mounting. That's a great little touch.
It is. So there you go. That's the Samsung Q900. Initial thoughts on that one, and the ZF9 review is up there for the Sony. So if you want to read that, then go on. And the Q9 should be turning up this week while you listen to this podcast. The review should be going up.
Q900.
The Q900, should be
confusing, isn't it? Too many nines and Qs knocking around.
Well, I've still got the Q9FN long-term review to do, and I need to do that before the end of the month as well. So there is a review coming of that with the latest firmware and all the rest of it. And I've been living with that TV for a little while and had it up against the OLEDs that I have here at the same size and all the rest of it. So that review's coming, the sort of long-term tests and testing it against other technologies and strong points and all the rest of it. So that's what will come up as well. So this week for the Q900 review, I'm halfway through writing it. And like I say, I've still got a bit of testing which I'll do over the weekend, and that should be done. So let's move to some audio. Steve, you've been looking at two Yamaha products. Yeah,
I've had two Yamaha soundbars in for review. And obviously, Yamaha is a company that largely pioneered the concept of a soundbar. These are their two new models. They're called it's the Yamaha MusicCast BAR 40 and the Yamaha MusicCast BAR 400. So quite similar names. Basically, they both use exactly the same soundbar. So if you buy the BAR 40, it's just a soundbar on its own. And if you buy the BAR 400, it's a soundbar plus a subwoofer, a wireless subwoofer. And the two soundbars are identical. There is one difference. The only difference between the two of them is that the soundbar 40 has an output for a sub, physical output for a sub. Whereas the BAR 400 doesn't, because obviously it comes with a wireless sub, so there's really no need for that. But the BAR 40, you have the option of either connecting a sub physically to the soundbar if you want, or you can buy the Yamaha Sub 100, which is a MusicCast wireless sub that's been designed to be used with the 40 in a MusicCast surround system. So in fact, for the reviews, what I actually did was I reviewed the 400 as it comes, so it's a soundbar and a wireless sub, and I also reviewed the 40 both on its own. And then also as a system. So they sent me the Sub 100 and a pair of MusicCast 20s, which I believe you've reviewed, Ed, quite recently as well.
Yes, I have.
Yes. So basically, and I've got to say, starting off with the 40, so just as a soundbar on its own, very nice. It's obviously a bit lacking in the bass department, but they know how to design a soundbar. It's well designed. It's well made. It's essentially got two stereo speakers at the front. It sounds great with TV, with music, and good with movies to a limited extent. It does have an interesting feature. It's got various surround features, most of which I think don't work particularly well. But it does have DTS Virtual X, which is their version of psychoacoustic immersive audio from a 2-channel source, which actually doesn't work too badly, particularly if you feed it a DTS-X signal. Now I should stress that these soundbars, they don't support any immersive audio formats like DTS-X or Dolby Atmos. In fact, they don't support lossless. They are limited to lossy formats. They've only got one HDMI input, which again, price wise, the BAR 40 is 329 quid currently, and the BAR 400 is £499. So they're not overly priced, but I do think one HDMI input is a bit stingy. Having said that, since it doesn't support lossless audio, you can just send everything back, collect everything to your TV, send it back to the soundbar via ARC. It doesn't make any difference in terms of sound quality, so you could just do that. So the fact there's only one HDMI input is a bit of a moot point, but yeah, they don't support any lossless format. So yeah, as a standalone soundbar, it's very good, very solid. No complaints. It's not a stellar performer, but it's a good, solid soundbar. It does the job, does what it's supposed to do. Go to the 400 and add in the subwoofer that it comes with. And this is a slimline sub that's been designed and tuned to work with the soundbar, the soundbar in the soundbar 400 version. That works really well, because then you got that extra low end thump that you want particularly when you're watching movies. Gives it a bit of extra bass presence. They work together really well. They're nicely integrated. That worked really well. And then moving on to the BAR 40 with the system, what I had, because you've got MusicCast, but obviously the name's it's in the name of these products. They're all MusicCast products. MusicCast is fantastic. So you've got MusicCast built in, which means that if you want to set up a system, a multi-room system, you can have various speakers. So, like for example, they sent me these two MusicCast 20s. You can put one in the lounge, one in the study, or one in the bedroom, and I can have a MusicCast system. I can send music all around the house. That works flawlessly. It's really good. It's a really well designed, well thought out system. The remote app that controls it all is fantastic as well. Setting it up as a surround system was so easy. It was really good. I mean, you just basically you just go into the app and you just add them in as a system, and then you have you allocate, say, one is surround left, one is surround right. So you've got the two MusicCast 20s at the back, you've got the soundbar at the front, you've got the sub 100 connected. It's all done via MusicCast. So robust, there's no delay or anything like that, no sync issues. It worked perfectly, and it really does create a nice surround system. Now, my only sort of issue really is that the sub 100 is a good sub. It's much bigger. It's a different sub to the one that comes with the 400. So it's a standalone sub. It's bigger. It's got an 8-inch driver rather than a 6.5-inch driver. It's a lot more powerful. It's a good sub. The MusicCast 20s are great little speakers in their own right. Work really well as surround speakers. But the cost of that system, you're looking at around about £1,000 to put that system together. Now, obviously, you could also use the surround 20s. The MusicCast 20s as as speakers in the rest of the house, but you're not using them as surround speakers, so they've got double purpose. But £1,000, a reasonable amount of money for what's essentially a 4.1 system with no immersive audio support. When you consider that for an extra £400-500, you can get the Samsung HWN950, and you've got yourself a 7.2, 1.4 immersive audio system with support for Atmos and DTSX. So price-wise, it gets a bit toppy when you start adding in these other features, but they do work really well. I mean, it is a very clever system, and it's robust and it sounds great. So, yeah, like I say, both of them are solid entries as far as soundbars go. They both do their jobs as they're designed to. They sound good, and they've got some great features on them.
So, who do you think the customer is for this type of system, then, Steve?
Well, I guess if you just want to put a soundbar in with your TV, boost the sound on your TV, then you get the BAR 40 in, job done. You got a much better sound than you're going to get off the television. It works really well. You get MusicCast as well, of course. So if you're a MusicCast,
has it got Alexa?
It does have Alexa voice control. Yes.
Yes, it's
now
got
I've got to say, it's relatively easy to set up. Although you do have to create a Yamaha account, which is a bit of a pain. But it's relatively easy to set up. And then it does work, but I do find with these voice control features when they're basically working in conjunction with Alexa, for example, it is very dependent on how you phrase the instruction to whether it actually works or not. It's generally a lot easier just to pick up the remote or use the remote app, which is brilliant. But yes, you can get it to sort of volume up, volume down, or change the source by telling Alexa to tell the soundbars to do that. So it does do that. So I think if you're into MusicCast, if you've got a MusicCast system in the house, it's a good addition because you get the benefits of MusicCast, and also with BAR 40 in particular, you have the option if you want later to add things like a sub or surround speakers. So I think that's probably who it's aimed at, really, someone who's already invested somewhat in the Yamaha ecosystem. I think a standalone. I mean, if you're looking at standalone soundbars, then for example, the Sony ZF9. well, confusingly, not the TV, but the soundbar. That's a soundbar and sub combo, and that supports Atmos and DTS. That's out of the box. Also uses psychoacoustic processing, but you get that for about £600. So when you're looking at pricing, that's only about £100 or so more than the 400, which is just a lossy soundbar with sub combo. So some competition out there, but I think if someone's invested in Yamaha products and the MusicCast ecosystem, it's a good buy.
Okay, good stuff. We were going to talk snake oil next, but I think we'll leave that one.
We'll leave that.
Week.
Just
we'll get drunk next Friday.
Stick the piece up. Let's get fuel tanked up, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so come back next week. We're going to talk snake oil next week. So before we wrap up on hardware news, it is Editor's Choice Awards season. The first one has gone up, which is Home AV. Now, Steve helped me put this one together for Editor's Choice because he'd obviously seen the product, and Ed's going to do the same for the hi-fi, and then I'll wrap up with TVs, and we also have the mobile phones as well, smartphones to wrap up as well. So we've still got some more to come, but Home AV has been published. It is on the homepage. So why don't you quickly run down what we awarded Steve and why?
So yeah, these are obviously AV products. So I think someone asked the question, but Phil will be doing TVs and projectors at a later date, and obviously Ed's going to be doing hi-fi. But in terms of AV products specifically, home cinema speakers under £2,000. No question in my mind, the Q Acoustics 3050i. Cinema pack that I reviewed, that was a pair of floor standers, center speaker, sub, and two bookshelves for the rears. Was
there anything else in the running there, Steve? Would there anything else worth a mention?
I think XTZ worthy of mention. They did a fantastic speaker package, very competitively priced. So they would be my sort of that's the first place, and then also worthy of mention XTZ. Really, really good package there. But I think the Q Acoustics package, sound quality wise, build quality wise, design, they know what they just year in, year out, they keep doing this. They keep delivering these superb speakers. And the floor standards in particular do have a little bit of DNA from the Concept 500s that Ed awarded a reference badge to. Was it last year? Last year, wasn't it? Yeah, it's a solid package. So, if you're looking for a really competitively priced, brilliantly sounding speaker package, then Q Acoustics should be top of your list. Going up the scale, more expensive. For me, I've chosen the Bowers & Wilkins 700 Series 2, or S2 series. That I thought they sounded superb. A real surprise to me. I was expecting a very different performance than what I got. And I think if you're a B&W fan, you're going to love them. But I think even if you're someone who perhaps hasn't been totally sold on the whole idea of Kevlar before, the Continuum, whatever it's made of, and I don't really know, sounds fantastic. It remains an enjoyable speaker, but it has a better, more neutrality than you'd expect perhaps from a B&W. But I thought they were an absolutely cracking set of speakers, beautifully made and designed as well. Gorgeous to look at. So they'll be my choice for over £2,000. In terms of honourable mentions there, I'd say that the Arundels, monitors, the smaller version they've released, nice, I use that term loosely, they also sounded superb, so definitely worth considering. What else have we got? Subwoofer wise, under £1,000, the Rel HT 1003 was really good, and cracking price too, so check that out. And then over the other end of the scale, this was a late entry on my part, but the SVS PC 4000, loved it. Not as massive in terms of sheer physical space as the PB 4000, but it sounded almost as deep, and you can sort of pop it in the corner. It's not too obtrusive. I mean, it is big, but not as big as some of the others, and it sounded superb, so that's worth considering. Soundbar under £1,000, Sonos Beam, loved it. Little tiny, very small but big sound from a small soundbar, and obviously it's got the Sonos system built in, which is fantastic. And then best soundbar over £1,000, no question in my mind, Samsung HW N950 competes with AVR packages. It sounds great. It does 7.1.4 Atmos and DTSX. You can't go wrong. And then best AV amplifier of the year is the AVC, the Denon AVC X8500. 13 channels of processing, 13 channels built in as well, and just does everything you could imagine. Awesome. And then player-wise, best 4K player of the year, Panasonic UB9000. It's a great player, and beautifully made. Looks great and sounds fantastic. Yeah,
well. I guess the only other thing that competes with it is Panasonic's other player, the
UB820, which is essentially the same, but without the nice metal.
Yeah, I got mine. I got mine this week because obviously I've put one in place so I can test them with the projectors and so on, because it has the different tone mapping that you can use with smaller. So I unpacked it yesterday, and I was really impressed with what you get for. I think they're going for about $299 at the minute in the stores.
It's basically like the UB900, their flagship from a couple of years ago. I mean, it's cracking value, absolutely cracking value.
Yeah, no, really good. Right, so that's the Editor's Choice Awards 2018. That is Home AV. Thanks very much for that, Steve. Ed will do Hi-Fi next week, and we'll also talk about snake oil once we're drunk, or once they're drunk, because I'm teetotal. Movie news is next. Okay, so I was going to say movie reviews and news, but we haven't got any reviews this week. So I just haven't got the time to go over the door at the minute, and you didn't get to the cinema. I have a funny feeling...
Well, nothing I wanted to see, but I'm going to see quite a few films next week.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you will be going to see some of these films, so tell us what's coming up this week.
Okay, we've got Mortal Engines, which is directed by Christian Rivers, who was second unit director and sort of, I think, visual effects supervisor or something like that on the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies. But he's basically
the what?
I was shifting myself. The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. But yeah, he's basically an acolyte of Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson has produced and co-written this adaptation of a book. A series of books, I believe, and it's called Mortal Engines. Basically, I saw the trailer for it. I've seen the trailer a few times now. It looks silly. It's got basically about cities that move around. It's coming out on a Saturday night in an attempt to boost its opening weekend. That's an old trick they put out, opening on Saturday night, which means by the following weekend, it's got nearly a whole week's worth of takes. I've got a sneaking suspicion this is going to massively bomb.
Yeah, I think so as well. I looked at the trailer, and the problem is, if you look at the trailer and you don't understand the concept straight away, they're going to have to spend such a long time telling you what it is that you're watching. In the lead, there's probably about an hour's worth of the film.
It's a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah,
moving cities. It just looks silly. I've just got a sneaking suspicion this is about to tank. Yeah. It just has all the makings of a box office bomb.
Yeah, looks like that.
It does look quite stonking, though.
Yeah, it looks great. I'm not sure it's going to pull anyone in. I just don't think anyone cares.
It's a bit Waterworld, isn't it? Really, in concept.
I've never even heard of the books it's based on, so I don't think it's got the inbuilt recognition for cinema goers. It hasn't got the star pulling power. Peter Jackson isn't the name he used to be. I think The Hobbit's rather tarnished his reputation. I think it's going to bomb. I'm going to see it next week anyway, but I think it's going to bomb. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I can't wait to see this. The word on advanced word's been fantastic. The trailer looks really clever, really funny. It's been written and it's produced by Lord and Miller, the guys who got sacked from Solo. I think they could be getting the last laugh here. I think this is going to be a big hit. I think it's going to go down really well. It looks really good fun.
Can you very, very quickly explain what this is, because it means nothing to me? Spider-Man.
Okay, it's a Spider-Man. It's an animated film based on Spider-Man. Not the Spider-Man we're familiar with, the Peter Parker Spider-Man, because there's loads of different Spider-Mans in the comics. I think it's Miles Morales, his version of Spider-Man. But he basically ends up going into the Spider-Verse and meeting all the different versions of Spider-Man from all the different comics over the years. So you've got all these different Spider-Mans voiced by different actors. It just looks really clever and really funny, and kind of riffs on the whole Spider-Man thing without being too serious with itself. And the sort of plays on the history of Spider-Man over the years and the different versions of Spider-Man. It just looks like it could be really, really good fun and clever. And even if you don't necessarily know a lot about Spider-Man, I think you can just enjoy it. So I'm actually looking forward. I'm seeing this next week as well. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to do really well. The advanced word, as I said, has been really, really good. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And also coming out next week, I'm not seeing it next week because I want to see it in IMAX. I'm going to go and see it the week after. But it's also coming out, it's Aquaman, which is the film that's going to have to right the DC ship after Justice League. But the advanced word, again, it looks spectacular in the trailers, I have to say. Just the amazing visuals. But the advanced word, again, has been good on this. So it might well be a big hit towards the end of the year for DC. So those are 3 films that are coming out. So I think 2 hits and a bomb. That's what we got coming.
It's given me reason to probably go to the cinema next week then. I really, for some strange reason, I fancy Aquaman. I fancy going to see it. So
yeah, I just thought
just keep that to yourself.
Is it good looking?
I realised that as soon as I said that, I thought, oh, Sam's going to pick up on that.
Well, you would have done exactly the same.
Yeah, I know.
So, high horse off.
And I'm intrigued with Spider-Man. I don't know enough. I think I don't know enough about Spider-Man lore to to get that though, Steve. Maybe see that on a streaming service or a disc. I'm not sure I'd go to the cinema to see that one. Mortal Engines, nah, not interested at all on that one. Right, Blu-ray releases this week. What are we going to do?
Okay, we got Christopher Robin, which was Disney's recent film where Christopher Robin has grown up, played by Ewan McGregor, and he's forgotten about Pooh because he's an adult now, and then Pooh comes back to find him. Apparently, it's quite emotional, lots of tears at the end. Haven't seen it. I did quite fancy it, but did get around to seeing it.
Is that wise if it's a weepy, Steve? Is that wise for you?
I'll be floods of tears. But anyway, if you fancy something that's, I guess it is aimed at kids, although it might find the little ones getting quite up teary-eyed at the end. But Christopher Robin, that's out on disc. Also out on disc. Now I saw this when it was broadcast on BBC at the time of the Remembrance service, the celebrations of the end of commemorations of the end of World War One. But They Shall Not Grow Old, which is the good thing that Peter Jackson's done recently, I suspect. But they've taken footage from the time, shot at the time. They've adjusted this frame rate so it actually the motion looks normal, because a lot of stuff was shot at 18 frames a second rather than 24, which is why it looks like it's speeded up when you look at old footage. They've adjusted the frame rate so it looks normal. They've colorized it. They also did 3D as well. They also turned it into 3D for the cinema release. Annoyingly, really annoyingly, they're only releasing it on Blu-ray as a 2D Blu-ray. So you can't get it as a 3D disc, which has really pissed me off.
Well, what have you got to play it on?
Oh, I've got a 3D projector.
Yeah, I've still got a 3D projector.
Yeah, I do 3D still.
Yeah. You are a bit neat. You're a niche of a niche now, aren't you? I mean, in terms of
effort of turning this footage into 3D as well. God's sake, put it out on disc so you can watch it. Anyways, They Shall Not Grow Old. And I saw it. Did you guys see it when it was on TV?
I didn't get around to seeing it.
It was brilliant. It was really good. It did the footage when they go into the colorized footage.
Oh, I did watch it. Sorry, Steve. Yeah, I did. It was a few weeks ago now, but yeah, I remember watching that now.
It's quite striking because it just makes you feel like it was shot yesterday, not 100 years ago. It makes it, and also I've got to say, a lot of the testimony from veterans that was done and recorded in the 60s, it kind of it's really revisionist, because a lot of them are saying they would do it again, that they didn't, when it was over, when the war ended, they didn't know what to do with themselves. It doesn't necessarily play to expectations of the horrors and the shell shock and post-traumatic stress, but also the people that frankly quite enjoyed themselves. Because
JBS Haldane, if you ever want to explore that, there was an extremely interesting human being called JBS Haldane, who in his own words enjoyed the business of killing immensely, but he managed to channel his efforts into some quite extraordinary research into the effects of pressure and decompression on the human body, which he mostly conducted on himself. So he was searching for thrills in the most interesting ways. Honestly, you could fill a podcast with him. He did one experiment which meant he lost all sensation in his arse for 3 years.
I've had curries like that.
So yeah, it's a really strange. Steve is exactly right. We've been so. We've sort of grown so used to the whole construct of the horrors of war that there are a subset of people in every conflict who enjoy the complete absence, if you like, of restraint and societal norms, and they find it almost impossible to go back. In some ways, Rambo is a modern take on that. There's also a book. So there's also a book called The Warriors by Glenn Gray. It's quite old now, but it's a very, very interesting take on the psychology of people in combat, if you want to explore that sort of thing.
Yeah. So if you didn't see They Shall Not Grow when it was on TV, it is worth watching. So it's not available on Blu-ray. Also, we've got The Equaliser 2, sequel to The Equaliser, obviously, with Denzel kicking ass again, which I actually quite enjoyed. The Equaliser. It's not stretching the brain, but it was enjoyable. There's The Meg, which I loved, and watched again recently on 4K disc and loved even more. We've got Alpha, which is a story about a boy and a wolf, basically the relationship between a boy and wolf. I think set into prehistoric times. I know little about that film, but that's available. Dynasties is coming out on both on Blu-ray and 4K disc. Absolutely fantastic series. If you haven't seen it, for God's sake, watch it. You can watch it in 4K and HLG on iPlayer if you want to. It's also available on Blu-ray. And we've got the Magnificent Ambersons coming out on Blu-ray, which is the second film that Orson Welles made after Citizen Kane. It was cut by the studio. He basically fell out. He got sacked eventually. They cut it themselves. And It's been revised as a master. It failed at the time; it bombed massively, but has since been considered a masterpiece. Although obviously they would prefer to have seen Wells's original cut rather than the one the studio created. But that sound blew it. I'm coming out on 4K disc. Dynasties, as I mentioned, Equaliser 2 and the Meg are all out on 4K disc this week as well.
The Meg in 4K.
It was awesome, honestly.
I know, I loved it.
The sounds were fantastic. I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it second time. Enjoyed it second time more than I did the first time. And the picture and sound are absolutely stellar on this film, so worth getting.
So would you pay 40 quid, Steve, to go and see that at the new Odeon?
I would not. No. This is taking the piss, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
It's an incredible achievement that the Odeon has managed to make drinking in London look like a cost-effective pastime.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just to bring everybody up to speed, so that the UK's first Dolby Cinema is going to be opened at Odeon Lux, which is Odeon Leicester Square. So it is central London. It's Leicester Square. It's where the premieres happen and so on. So I have no doubt it will be a fantastic facility. I have no doubt that, myself and Steve have been to Dolby Cinema.
Great.
We went to one in Vegas. It was fantastic. Leather recliners. The sound's amazing. The picture's amazing. It's going to be a real experience. £40 is just too much. I mean, we paid $17 each for
something like that.
for Vegas, which was at AMC Cinemas in Vegas. It was a chain like that anyway. And it was but it was only $17, which you don't mind. And I don't mind. I wouldn't mind paying 17 quid or 18 quid for the Dolby experience.
I'd probably go up 20 quid for West End.
Yeah.
Fine.
But what time of day was that?
Oh, that was in the evening. Yeah, that was 8 o'clock at night.
Evening screening.
Yeah, it's about 8 o'clock at night. We went to the Dolby Cinema in Vegas, and like I say, it was $17. So I'd pay 20 quid. Any more than that, I think, is ridiculous. And I know London's more expensive, and I know it's it's the tourist zone, and I'm sure they'll make the money. I just object to it myself, to be honest. I would not pay that personally.
Their claim that it's comparable to prices paid for West End theatre tickets is ridiculous because that's a live performance. Yeah. This is a cinema. It's the same film whether you're in the Odeon Leicester Square or the Odeon in Bar. I mean, their pricing is astronomical anyway. The Odeon in Bar's 13 quid, and it's crap. That's just like standard cinema. So I think their pricing generally is a bit of a piss take. I mean, thankfully I've got. I wonder what the price is if you've got a limitless card then for.
But it doesn't work in central London. Yeah. You have to pay.
You have to pay extra for that, don't you? Anyway, it's 40 quid, just ridiculous. I bet you that gets dropped pretty quickly. I don't think they get too many takers at that price.
No, I don't think
that. I don't think that will get dropped. I think there'll be takers for it.
Yeah.
Will there be enough?
It's central London. That's the point. It's a kind of big experience. It's a thing for kind of tourists to say, we don't have one of these cinemas where we are, why not splash out on it? That is ultimately, though, the maximum price that it will cost, absolutely, in the best screen, with the big seats and everything and, prime, it's the average ticket price is going to be, probably like, 20 quid, something like that, which people will always pay.
Yeah, but
we'll see how we go.
I just think 40 quid's a bit much, and I think the way that they've marketed as well, like Steve says, because they do not use live sporting events as well as
again, that's a very different thing.
Yeah, very different grip. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. And like Mark says, I tend to agree with Mark as well. It's central London, it's tourist zone.
Tourists will pay it. It's the only Dolby Cinema in the country currently. I'm sure once we see competition, what they'll probably do is that this area of seating that's 40 quid will gradually get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So it'll still technically be there.
Or they might do what Odeon do anyway, and they'll have certain days where it's half price or whatever. Half price Wednesday or something like that. I'm sure they'll do something like that. Anyway, the other thing you have to pay attention to, people, is that Tom Cruise has spoken. He this week has told us all about image smoothing technology and that we should be switching it off on our TVs. And if Tom tells you to do something, it's pretty wise to listen to Tom.
Well,
because
given he didn't mention body thetans or any of the other dodgy constructs,
what's going to happen though if you don't switch off your image smoothing is that you get a letter in the post asking you to do it.
From Xenu.
You'll then get text messages and emails asking you to do that. And if you still refuse, then you're probably going to start getting visits
from Tom.
People.
Well,
maybe
Tom's
not with
associates.
Tom, but Tom's associates, and then there'll be direct debits taking your earnings in the end.
It's just quite funny, isn't it, that we've been banging on about this for a decade, and Tom Cruise does one video and it's all over the news. It's like really annoying. It's like,
yeah, but that's
Are you
that's
suggesting that you don't? Are you annoyed that you don't have the same?
Well, no, I tell you
Tom
what,
Cruise
don't
because
ever
you're a
question.
delusional bellend.
Just don't question Tom Cruise's star power, because clearly he's got plenty of it.
yeah. I mean,
I don't think anybody else would have got that response. I think he's the only film star left. I mean, real proper film star, as in someone who, as they saw with The Mummy, you can't make a film with Tom Cruise and have it be something like a franchise thing, because it's just going to be a Tom Cruise film. And The Mummy is meant to be a franchise starter, but ultimately it was a Tom Cruise film. He's the last great film star. No, Pitt, you can shove in anything. He's not a film star. Pitt hasn't made a successful film in years.
No.
Tom Cruise, 800 million for the last Mission Impossible film. That's a sixth one in the series. Honestly, the man's amazing. I mean, and not only that, but he did this video, and I totally agree with him. Obviously, I think we all will agree with that. Turn off frame interpolation, turn off motion smoothing, because it ruins the look of film. Fair enough. But he does the video. He knows he's got Mission Impossible Fallout coming out next week. Or this week, wasn't it? It's just come out this week.
Yeah, it was this week, yeah.
Come out this week, so he's timed it perfectly to promote his new film. Also, he's on the set of Top Gun 2 in his flight suit, so he's plugging that at the same time. The man's a genius.
Yeah. Do you think we'll manage to get him on the new Picture Perfect when we update that and say, hey, Tom?
It's got to be worth an email.
Serious about this, then let's do something about it.
If he could do it in his Les Grossman costume as well, that would just be... because that would be more in line with the message from AVForums. More swearing and just general offensiveness.
What would be great?
Punch him really hard.
What would really be great is if he did a whole series of public information things in all the characters that he's ever played in his films, and they pop up before you watch a film on Blu-ray or whatever. That would be fantastic. That really would. By the way, people, switch off motion interpolation before you watch this.
So there you go. The possibilities are endless, and it's an unusual point where, for one brief, fleeting moment, our little corner of interest was briefly the focus of what other people were doing.
Tom Cruise made my geekdom cool for one glorious moment.
Was it throbbing, Steve?
Something was. Yeah.
I have to admit, I feel a bit hard done to here, because in terms of Hollywood vinyl aficionados, I think the best we've got is Elijah Wood. I mean, don't get me wrong, Elijah Wood is actually he's got some very, very nice hardware, fanatical collector of records, and he's done some lovely YouTube videos on it, but it's just not quite the same.
Martin Freeman knows a scary amount about music too. He's a very erudite.
Yes, but he's not a hardware guy.
No, but he knows a lot about music.
Steve Davis is.
Steve Davis is a player.
Yeah, apparently he's got a cracking.
He's a DJ.
And so does Ross Brawn.
Steve,
Formula
interesting. Steve Davis.
Yeah, he's got a cracking set of
Steve
techniques.
Davis is absolutely brilliant value these days. Yes, when he got started, he was nervous and awkward and all the rest of it. But now he's self-effacing, brilliantly funny, and as I say, apparently his record collection is the nuts.
Yeah. So I've seen a few articles in some magazines about his record collection, and it's staggering, absolutely staggering. The weight of it itself, I think he had to reinforce the room in which it's in because of the sheer weight of vinyl that he owns. And
he, like me, big fan of various French artists. I mean, they've got some. France has got the lead on a lot of these things. So yeah, all good. But unfortunately, none of these people have quite the same heft as Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to Dr. Death, Steve.
Yes, yet another death this week. Again, not that young, although actually not that old. 70s, is that old now? I don't know. Gloria Katz died. Now you might be thinking, who the hell's Gloria Katz? But she and her husband Willard Hoyk, they are friends of. Well, she was a friend of George Lucas, and they co-wrote American Graffiti. Also, she beefed up Princess Leia's dialogue in Star Wars. So far so good. Unfortunately, then they went and made Howard the Duck, and pretty much their entire careers were ended at that point, and they did nothing after Howard the Duck. But yes, she certainly was involved in some very successful films in the early 70s, and were screenwriters and also filmmakers in their own right, both her and her husband. And like I say, at least their involvement in American Graffiti and Star Wars, guarantees her a degree of fame. Unfortunately, what they're most famous for is making Howard the Duck. Yes, that was pretty much the end. I mean, if you look at IMDb, it's literally like Howard the Duck, and after that, not much.
Did you know that Howard the Duck is now on Netflix? Did you know that?
Is it?
Yes, it is on Netflix. I saw it the other night and I thought, I'm going to have to go and watch that.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. I think I did watch it when it came out on video in the 86, is it? Mid-80s? But that might just be a fake memory. I'm not quite sure. But I think I'll give it a watch, yes. But because obviously Howard the Duck is back. So he pops up at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, doesn't he?
Yes, he does, yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Howard the Duck, the idea clearly it should have been an animated film. What they were thinking, sticking a person of restricted height into a duck outfit with a crap mask on that frankly didn't work very well, and thinking that was going to fly in '86. I don't know, but yes, that's unfortunately what she's going to be most remembered for. Although she did, as I say, co-write American Graffiti and punch up the dialogue in Star Wars.
So not all bad.
No.
Can I just say, because obviously by the time we discuss TV programs, are going to be the end of the month that's ended. Still no idea who's going to win MasterChef.
Well, it's end of the month. Technically, it's end of the month next week.
Yeah, we're doing
I mean, I think it's going to be an uncanny valley show-off between the Scottish bloke who's clearly a serial killer and the bloke who looks like what's the chops in Blaze of Glory.
Oh yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah, he does.
So they both look like mannequins given life, but they can both cook like the Blazes. So I was sad that French lady went home though, because that accent, that's just awesome. As I say, if she could record me a sat nav, I'd be so happy.
But would you be able to stay on the road, Ed?
I'd keep it together, just about. I'd go the wrong way probably more times than I needed to, but that's by the by. But yeah, that's all good. Okay, if we're doing it next week, that's fine. I suppose if that is the end of play, then
next week is the final podcast of the year. So yeah, if anybody's got any suggestions of what maybe we should cover rather than the normal stuff, because like I say, it's bring games in and casual dress and all the rest of it. I
assume we're just going to do like film of the year, disc of the year, product of the year.
Yeah. Could we not let poor Mark talk and run us through some of the gaming highlights of the year?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Mark, you up for that?
Yeah, I don't mind doing that.
Excellent, because we do. Otherwise, as you say, we let you out the box to read the competitions. We talk about how your hats are going, and then I just think it's unfair. We need to give you your place in the sun.
Yeah. By the way, before we end, Steve mentioned last week on his C8 that he couldn't see HDR HLG for Dynasties. I understand there was a firmware update during the week.
Yes, so there has been a firmware update, although it rolls out gradually, piecemeal, and I haven't had it yet.
Have you not?
All right. So I think that should sort it out. Yeah.
It just popped in my head there when we mentioned Dynasties to mention that. So if you have got an LG TV and you're wondering what's happening, there is firmware coming in, seemingly, that will fix the issue.
The last episode of Dynasties is on this Sunday night, as we're recording it on the Friday. It involves tigers, so I'm expecting floods of tears from my wife. Given this series so far, it's been traumatic to say the least.
It has a bit.
I was annoyed that just on OLED notes, I was annoyed that Withers was entirely correct that completely resetting my B7 has restored its ability to actually look at apps in real time. How annoying! I don't understand why it would go.
Ed, you're in technical response and stuff. You should know that switching it off and switching it back on again.
Oh, mate, that's more than switching it. Telling the customer to do a full reset. I'm sorry. That's DEFCON 1. That you really don't have much left beyond take it back to the dealer after full reset. You don't wheel that out unless things are really bad. So it was severe. I mean, the thing I don't understand is I now have to, each time you open the apps for the first time, it has to then update them again as if it's managed. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But I am old and I mainly play with record players, so that's probably to be expected.
Okay, well, I think it's time to do a factory reset here. So that is it for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
You have to learn to move on.
Ed Selley.
Whoever you're looking for, it's not me.
And Mark Botwright.
You recognise that smell?
And don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums, the latest reviews, news and video, and of course leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you for the last podcast of the year next week.